That CPD show. My name is Chris and I'll be your host for today. And today I'm joined on the island by Pastor Amy Jorden. Amy is a location pastor at One Church Gloucester and is currently overseeing all of the Sunday services there. Amy was also a C24 coach for AOGGB's Minister in Training program. And Amy has recently completed a master's in Practical Theology with Missio Dei. Well done, Amy. Amy, it's great to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's great to be on the podcast. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Well, tell me about the masters. You've just completed that. How did it go? How did you find it?
It was brilliant. So I can't praise it highly enough. I think I'd always attempted to study in my own time, but obviously, as we all know, priorities just kind of trump that a lot of the time. So to have like a real set deadlines and you're paying money for it and you're having accountability towards having assignments in really helped me personally, I think, to be able to study things that I'd never thought of studying before. And on the other hand, study things that I've always wanted to study, but haven't set time aside to do. So it was brilliant. I loved it.
And from what I can hear, it was very healthy for your CPD points total for last year.
That was perfectly timed. I can add that onto CPD. I was very happy. However, I feel like my marker, you have a peer reviewer, threw me under the bus because I think they accidentally didn't double my score. So I could have got a score doubled for reviewing my experience. And
there are double points are given if you can show how it's impacted you.
That's right.
So I think that, Amy, here we are. If you can show me on air how it's impacted you, then we'll find a way to double your points anyway. So
it's changed my life and my ministry. There we go.
Well,
double those points.
There we are. Clearly, that's it. So brilliant. Okay, excellent. Right. Well, that's very good to talk about CPD and all those kind of things. And, we're going to get into some of that, I'm sure, later, because we're going to be talking today about 3 resources. But very important that we talk about, before we start talking about your 3 resources that you've got with you today, is, I say this every episode, this is a desert island, much better than a desert island. Who cares about desert islands? Not me. That's the question. That's the answer. But I do care about a desert island because that just sounds wonderful. So I've got to know, what is your favorite dessert that you're bringing to this desert island, Amy Jorden?
So I am bringing, so I've recently had to go dairy free, which when it comes to desserts is no fun whatsoever. So I'm going to give you, I'm going to give you 2.
Okay.
And then choose one. So full on dairy dessert would have to be banoffee, because that, for me, you trick yourself into thinking that it's slightly healthy because you've got that banana in there.
Whoa. Who's thinking it's healthy?
I think it tricks me. There's fruit. It's healthy. Just ignore all the toffee.
I don't think anyone's thinking it's remotely healthy.
I think that's what's so brilliant about banoffee is the combination. So banoffee would have to be it. But now I think being dairy free and choosing a dessert really is a quite sad feat. So that would have to be some kind of a brownie, warm brownie.
Okay. A warm brownie with sort of a, can you have it with anything? Can you have it with a soy ice cream?
That's it. Yeah.
Well, my dear mother is dairy free, and she has the Swedish glacé ice cream. Have you had that?
That's it. Yes, that's in my freezer right now.
It's pretty good, actually.
It's pretty good. You could trick people into thinking that it's proper ice cream.
There we are. You've heard it here first.
If you get nothing else of this podcast today, Swedish glacé ice cream.
Glacé.
All the dairy freers out there.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Well, talk to me about brownie. Obviously, it would be good to talk about banoffee pie. Feels a bit unfair to talk to you about it because you can't, it'd be wrong because you can't sort of finish this podcast and go and have a banoffee pie. So, why the brownie? What do you love about a brownie?
Well, I think it's that beautiful when you get a brownie with a crunch on the outside, but then it's like beautifully gooey on the inside. And when it's warm with the combination then of the cold ice cream is just beautiful. And I'm salivating as we speak. I think, yeah, just a lovely gooey but crispy brownie.
And I mean, there's a difference for me between a brownie that's the corner piece
Oh, 100%.
and the middle piece.
Yeah.
And for me, I always go for the corner piece. If I can get the corner piece. There's something about it, isn't there?
There's extra crisp, isn't there, on the outside?
Yeah, but it's not dry. It's just it works, doesn't it? Yeah. No, excellent. Yeah. So a brownie, a good choice of dessert. I mean, given your current dietary requirements, that makes a lot of sense. And maybe have it with some Swedish glacé ice cream or whatever it's called. Do you know what? I'm going to talk about a dessert today because I haven't talked about a dessert in a while, and people are starting to get worried that I've stopped eating desserts or something. And of course I haven't. But so I am going to talk about a dessert, and especially because it's a new dessert I've had recently. And people have been asking me as well, whenever I talk about a dessert, is that my favorite dessert? The answer is no, it's not. But it is a dessert I love. And it's really, talking about desserts as my favorite dessert is a bit like trying to pick my favorite child. It's very, very difficult to do. I'm not going to say who's my favorite
Who is
child. No. But I'm going to talk about a dessert I've had recently, and it was something my wife made, and she made. I could only describe it as a lemon sliced thing because I don't think it's really got a name. But basically, think of it as like a lemon meringue pie, kind of middling dessert, not great. But you change out the pie crust for like shortbread, and then and so it's like a shortbread pie crust with then the lemon middle, and then how it kind of is made is that the this kind of like meringue bit sort of thing emerges on the top, and then you can have it almost. You don't have to have it in a bowl. You can almost have it just as a slice, but you can have it with cream. You can, but it's just like the real win is the shortbread, because the shortbread then goes really like chewy on the back part, like how the pie kind of goes, there's the bottom and then there's the side. On the side it goes really chewy and it's excellent. I don't know where you can get it from. You'd have to call Mrs. Bright and ask her to make you a lemon slice thing.
Can we email leadership development to request orders?
CPD at aoggb.com. Yes, email me. The price will be extortionate, but I will it'll be my side business.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, that's the desserts. Let's move on to the three resources that you've got. Should we dive into the first resource? What's your first one that you brought with you today?
So first resource today is a book called Well-Being, and that's by Tom Rath and Jim Harter. So in this book, the authors seek to outline 5 essential elements for thriving well-being. So it's not necessarily a Christian book, but it's just they researched people in more than 150 different countries, and they found 5 universal elements that contribute to thriving well-being.
Okay, let's dive into those 5 things then. What are the 5 areas of well-being?
Yeah, so they are career well-being, social well-being, financial, physical, and community well-being. And so the book provides you with like this holistic view of what contributes to your well-being over a lifetime. So it was a really good, I almost read it, it was fascinating just to read, but then it's like a really good MOT of, okay, how well am I doing in each of those 5 areas? Are there one that I'm prioritizing more than the other? And how can I readjust that? So yeah, I think that was really beneficial for me. And especially like the big challenges were the physical well-being was a real challenge for me, because I understand I'm really happy in my career. I understand social well-being and community, financial well-being, understand that. Physical well-being, I wanted just to make all the excuses under the sun as to why I did not have to exercise or look after myself in that way. So it really challenged me, actually. And I think it's something, physical well-being isn't something that we necessarily talk about tons in church settings or in leadership settings. We're getting much better at talking about like emotional well-being and emotional health, but obviously physical well-being is massively important. So yeah, it's good
absolutely. And with CPD, you can input a 3-month health goal as part of development, because recognizing that development should be holistic. What's that look like for you? What's that journey of moving towards well-being in the kind of in that sort of physical well-being? What's that look like for you? How have you journeyed, and how have you seen the sort of the benefit of it as well?
Well, I think for years I never wanted to do anything exercise wise. I never prioritized rest. I always ate what was quick and easy, literally find any excuse possible to avoid having to do anything that constituted health in that respect. But I think over the years, and I think that book really contributed towards it, it really challenged the way that I see physical well-being, as in it's God's idea, isn't it? Like we're not just soul and spirit, but we're body, soul and spirit. Like John, in 3 John, it says about like, I pray that all go well with you, you'll prosper as your soul is getting on well, that you'll enjoy good health. I pray you'll enjoy good health as much as your soul's getting along well. And I think often we can prioritize emotional well-being, but seeing the fact that we have an embodied faith, we're living out our faith on the earth in this physical body, and we've only ever got one of them. So we need to look after it well. So for me, that's looked like prioritizing rest. And I know people over the podcast have talked about Sabbath, and that's been massive for me in terms of prioritizing a day where I just rest, down tools, try and slow down. Rest is massive, eating well, and actually starting to exercise. Probably that started in lockdown and tried to keep it up ever since. So prioritizing that and finding something that I just enjoy. I never thought there would be anything that I enjoy, like exercise-wise, but finding something that fits in with the schedule. And I think it's like a way that I'm honoring God in that sense. I think sometimes we can think that doing physical activity is less spiritual. I've definitely thought in the past, but it's on the way I eat, the way I exercise, the way I rest. I can honor God in that.
Well, we get that idea of, the body is less important than the soul and the spirit from Plato, not from the Bible. And how much we've absorbed a lot of that kind of philosophical, Greek philosophical thinking, really, where we think, oh yeah, it's not as important as the soul and the spirit, because we think, let's look after our soul, let's think about our spiritual walk with God. But actually, how we look after our body is very, very important. And so I thought I've really enjoyed recently, especially with, like you said, with the podcasts that I've been doing, how many ministers in Assemblies of God are really focusing on physical well-being, especially in the area of rest. It's a busy job being a minister, and so prioritizing that rest. And but you're right as well. I think prioritizing exercise, something I probably need to prioritize a little bit more at the moment. But
to the dessert.
yeah. I think people are surprised when people think I just spend my time eating dessert, which is partially true. But yes, I don't know how I'm going to get back to the topic now. But so talk to me about the other areas. What other things have you done? Maybe so apart from physical well-being, is there any others that have been a challenge for you? Any others that you other sort of things that you've been able to put in place that have really helped you?
Yeah, I think when it came to the financial well-being, what was fascinating was just how they showed that I think the emphasis on giving was fascinating. So like this book isn't necessarily aimed at ministers, not necessarily aimed at Christians specifically, but the research within the book demonstrated that there's a direct correlation between spending and happiness. And actually spending on others, giving towards others, whether that's a charity or friend, church, results in a greater return for our well-being than spending money on ourselves. So they show within the book that it is scientifically proven that it's better to give than to receive. And I think for me, that really helped me, because a big challenge that I can sometimes find when, as preachers, you want to teach people about tithing, about giving, but it can always seem like there's a bit of an ulterior motive of, well, we need the money to keep the church running and we need the money to keep our salaries going. But actually, when I discover that it is scientifically proven that you are going to be healthier, your well-being is going to be so improved if you give, then my message about generosity is not selfish, but it's pastoral. I have this responsibility to pastor the people that I'm leading, and encouraging them to give is not a selfish thing, but it's something that's going to benefit them directly. So I think that was a real challenge, my concept of giving and actually how positive it is, how beneficial it is to our well-being.
Yeah, we were just talking before the podcast. I've become a big fan of Dave Ramsey, who's the kind of, he's like the USA's version of Martin Lewis, you know, the money saving expert. And he's a Christian, and his advice is that even if you're in debt, you should be tithing. And he's not affiliated with any one specific church, so he doesn't have a kind of he doesn't have an ulterior motive in that. But the advice is that actually it's just however you use your money when you don't have it will be how you use your money when you do have it. And so being generous from the very start is really important. So like you said, you know, asking people to give, even if they're struggling financially, is actually still pastoral, because actually it's getting them into a different mindset of thinking. And I've really enjoyed actually, you know, something like that. And there'll be other systems as well that you can look at, but things that are based upon really excellent scriptural principles about how to use money well and to be good financially, you know, to be great wise stewards of money. Is, I think there's something that's part of that, and you get peace when you're stewarding your finances well, and that's where that well-being comes from. Because, you know, when you don't have debt and you haven't got loads and loads of payments going out every single month for things, it just changes your well-being. So it's, you're absolutely right. Financial is certainly a different, it's definitely one of those areas of well-being. So, okay, that's the book, Well-Being by Tom Rath and Jim Harter. Excellent book, definitely worth reading, getting into, and could, like we've seen there, it spins off into all different kinds of areas that could be beneficial as well. So that's great. Okay, let's move on to your second resource. What's the second one you brought?
Second one today is Atomic Habits by James Clear. So another book, and this has been really transformative for me, probably because it's almost linked to what we've just talked about. You can have aspirations when it comes to well-being, or aspirations when it comes to exercise, aspirations when it comes to your giving. But if that doesn't translate into practical, real habits in our lives, then it just remains as an aspiration. And really, to explain the concept of this book, may I read a quote by James Clear himself?
You may.
Okay. So this kind of summarizes his thinking behind the atomic habits concept. So he says, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. This is one reason why meaningful change does not require radical change. Small habits can make a meaningful difference by providing evidence of a new identity. And if a change is meaningful, it is actually big. That's the paradox of making small improvements. And so it's this idea that you can implement habits, you can implement significant change with a seemingly small habit. And that's been really beneficial for me. So he talks about when you start a new habit, then you need to implement the 2-minute rule. So the most effective way to implement a new habit is to...
Is that a question? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. You have frozen on my screen.
Oh, I have. I'm back. Sorry. There we
you
are.
are back. Okay. So I was pausing.
Sorry, I was sat there listening, and my screen froze. Shall I keep this in the podcast? Maybe I shall.
I'm happy to see what your editing skills are like.
Yeah, the 2-minute rule. You're talking about the 2-minute rule.
The 2-minute rule, when you're implementing a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. So when you start a new habit, don't just go out and run 5 miles every day. Like, start with a walk after work. Start with just parking farther away from your office and walking in a little bit. So implementing a new habit, start with the 2-minute rule. It should take less than 2 minutes to do. It's things like that, tools like that. And again, it's not a Christian book, but it's absolutely brilliant in terms of, if we have goals we want to obtain, how we actually make them practical, achievable.
No, that's really, really good. A book I've read as well, and I think it's a fantastic book. What are some of the habits that you've been able to implement in your life, and how have you found James Clear's principles and practices, that how have you helped that to be implemented?
Sure. So really practically, I guess, so linked to, like we were talking about, physical well-being. When I recognized that I wanted to eat better in the day, but my excuse was I've got no time, it takes a lot of time to prep food if you're eating well, then James Clear talks about this concept of habit stacking. So you identify a current habit and then stack your new behavior on top of it. So, for example, what I started to do every morning, an automatic habit, is I boil the kettle to make a cup of tea every morning without fail. That's not something I need to put effort in to do. But habit stacking, then I would attach a new habit, a new behavior onto that current habit. So whenever I'd boil the kettle, what I would do is then chop up vegetables or fruit to eat in the day. So it literally was no extra effort, no extra time. But whilst the kettle was boiling, I started to make food for the day. And again, under 2 minutes, that new habit. So that then just started to create this little bit of momentum, this desired behavior that I attached to something that I already do. And so he talks about things like, if you want to create a Bible habit, then just attach that onto something that you, while you brush your teeth, read the verse of the day, like really basic things. If you want to make a gratitude habit, then as you sit down to dinner, say one thing that you're grateful for. So attach that new behavior onto something that you currently do already. So yeah, for me, that's looked like chopping up healthy food while the kettle is boiling, or when I drive to work, I listen to a podcast intentionally instead of just listening to music instead, because I want to be able to learn and grow. I wanted a better podcast habit, so I attached that to something that I do every day. That's an example.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. It's really interesting, when we think about it from a Pentecostal aspect, because I think as Pentecostals, we tend to be, we don't like tradition. So anything that becomes habit for us, we tend to kind of think, oh, is that like a religious spirit? Is that are we doing that because it's, we've created a rule for ourselves? But I think this seems like it's more life-giving than that, and actually recognizing that some of those things are actually really helpful for our lives, to have a habit of prayer. So like for me, to help me have a better habit of prayer, I did a habit stack. My habit stack is, when I drop the kids off at school, when on the walk home, I pray, and I've got it's about 20-minute walk, so, or 20-minute walk, and so I've got plenty of time in the morning, just to take that moment, those moments of prayer, because it's, for me, that's a really helpful habit stack. Now, is it one of those things that if I'm not really feeling it in the morning, and I just, I prefer to just, listen to something on YouTube instead. But actually, I've got the habit now. The habit is, no, I don't do that. And so even if my motivation feels like it's a bit off, the habit is still there. And so I go, no, I don't do it. So I think it can be really helpful, because sometimes you think, oh, I've got to have the motivation, but the habits are there to, when you don't have the motivation, to still do the right thing when you've got that motivation. So yeah. Have there been any other bits and pieces that have, been really helpful for you with this book and implementing them into your life?
Well, I really would recommend it, because it goes into the theory behind habit formation as well. So it talks about cues and our responses to those things that trigger us to act in a certain way. So understanding that side of the theory behind it as well really helped me then, in terms of setting up, recognizing bad habits as well as creating good ones. So I think that's been really helpful to recognize, actually, certain times of the day, maybe I'm more susceptible to making a bad choice, or to eat something that I didn't want to eat, or to just scroll through social media. It's things like that, looking at cues, triggers, so you can have more self-awareness, I guess, in helping you to create something good and to pull down something that's a bad habit.
No, great. Okie dokie. So that's Atomic Habits by James Clear. Should we go on to your final resource? What's the final one you brought?
Yeah, this one is not a book. It's a little bit different. So it's a website called Precept Austin, and it's a website that is a collection of commentaries, sermons, devotionals, references, and quotes. And this is a tool that probably within the past couple of years, I've really found helpful in preach prepping. So obviously, when we're prepping for a preach, you want to look at different commentaries or different resources when you're studying. And I'll use things like Bible Hub normally, and that's brilliant to be able to compare commentaries. But what I really like about Precept Austin is that more than just commentaries, it's got things like devotionals on a certain passage. So recently, we're in a series at the moment on the Beatitudes as a church. So I had a Beatitude to research. So I had a look online, and it came up with a wealth of not just commentaries, but references, quotes from different authors, devotionals that had illustrations that I could use. So it was almost this bank of resources that can really benefit preach prep.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So so talk to me about a little bit about your process when you're going to be starting to do a bit of preaching. Is this the first place you go to? How does that work? How do you use it, weave it into your preaching process?
Sure. I think I know everybody would be different, but I think for me, I start by praying, reading the passage. So, for example, with this series that we have, I had the verse, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." So with this verse, for example, I had all sorts of preconceived ideas of what I thought that meant. And I had an idea in mind of what I could do, what line I could take it down, but it took time just to pray and really like to get that gut feel initially of like, okay, God, what would you like to say to your church? However, this time with this message, I had a certain line of thinking already of what I assumed that verse meant. And even from the context, like reading the Beatitudes, didn't necessarily get the context that I needed. So then what I'll do is I'll probably look at the original language to try and help me. So whether that's through Blue Letter Bible or the interlinear on Bible Hub. And then being able to go to Precept Austin after that. I think so. I always try and start with that gut of like, okay, God, what do you want to say? And then take that into, and shaping, understanding the context. Because that, for me, for example, with this Sunday on Blessed Are Those Who Mourn, understanding the context really then shaped the line that I took it down. So it was important for me to do that early. Yeah.
Great. So so you said it's got commentaries on there. Does it have just like a certain selection of commentaries, or is it so I know, you know, a lot of people will enjoy like the Matthew Henry commentaries or
Yeah.
those kind of ones, or does it have kind of the scholarly end of stuff? What sort of thing is it? More the sort of easy reading devotional style, or what? Yeah,
It's
what's
got
on
a
there?
real variety. So Matthew Henry's on there, and I like the Enduring Word commentary, very easy to read, like the David Guzik commentaries. So we've got things like that. But Charles Spurgeon comes in, like beautiful preachers of the past that have even written sermons. If the resources are there, then it just pulls and collates it all together. So some are better resourced than others, but it's a wide range of commentary. So all those that you would tend to find on Bible Hub you'd find there as well. Then as well as the extra pointed to different websites that have done articles on things, or so yeah, it's probably not like as scholarly as it wouldn't have attachments to like journals and things like that, but definitely in terms of like the well-known accessible commentaries that you could get in different places, it just pulls it all together in one place to save you having to search in lots of different areas, which is handy.
No, it's handy. There's another one I use, which is have you heard of Katina?
I have not.
Well, I'll tell you about it. It's an app it's got the Bible. You click on a verse, and then it will bring up quotes from the early church fathers. So a lot of
nice.
John Chrysostom, and you'll get, you know, Basil the Great, people like that, and them talking about that verse. And so if you want to get, you know, like those first 500 years of the church, it will have quotes from all those kind of brilliant church fathers, which I think is really cool, actually, because you can look and see, you know, what did, you know, this author, you know, what did, I don't know, Basil the Great say about this? What a name Basil indeed. Or, you know, what did Justin Martyr say about this? Or and so it's really, really helpful, because, you know, it can be helpful in terms of thinking about what did the earliest disciples after the writing of scripture think about it. So how did that, you know, it's obviously, it's not scripture, you know, it's not inspired, but it could be really helpful just to help you think it through.
That's right, that's it. And I think that's the case with commentaries. That's the case, isn't it, as well, because it's other people's understanding. But I think when that builds a picture, like you said, what did the early church fathers believe? What kind of context were they surrounded by? It just gives you a bigger picture, doesn't it, beyond our little 21st century.
That's right. And I've definitely found, you know, I am also like yourself doing a master's degree in practical theology at the moment, and getting into the commentaries on a passage, I've just found so illuminating and helpful, because you think that you know what a passage says, and then you read from people who have got, you know, they've got a lot more understanding in terms of the original Greek, in terms of the context and the culture of the time. And so there's so much you can read into it, and it's not that, you know, it doesn't change the gospel, but it just opens the passages up in such a rich way. And obviously not all commentaries agree with one another, so you have to kind of, you've got to be discerning in that sense, and see what makes most sense of the passage. But I found it really, really helpful using commentaries, and obviously something like Precept Austin would certainly do something like that very, very well.
That's right.
Excellent. Well, 3 excellent resources there. So we've got Wellbeing by Tom Rath and Jim Harter, got Atomic Habits by James Clear, and then we have Precept Austin. And that obviously would go very well with a banoffee pie, or maybe a dairy-free brownie as well.
Dairy-free brownie, come on.
But certainly Mrs. Bright's lemon slice, it would, honestly, drop me an email and I can try and give you the recipe.
Place your orders now.
Place your orders now. Prices will be extortionate. Amy Jorden, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been brilliant to talk with you through those resources. I'm really hoping this will be really helpful for people. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of That CPD Show. For more episodes, why not subscribe and give us a review? It really helps us out. See you next time.